Good morning, my name is Stephen Capaldo, and it is Saturday, February 26, 2022. And I said, I did a message a couple of days ago, it was on Russia and Ukraine, and I said that you wouldn't be hearing from me for a while. Well, I decided to do one more message before, now I think you won't hear from me for a while, but I decided to speak today because of certain things that are happening very quickly on this in this situation regarding the UN and Russia and Ukraine. So I decided to speak about this, and people make of it what they make of it. Yesterday, Friday the 25th, there was an emergency session of the UN Security Council to discuss a resolution that the Western countries basically proposed, a motion that they proposed, calling on Russia to withdraw completely from Ukraine. Now, the way the Security Council is structured, there are 15 members, and 5 of them are permanent members, US, UK, France, Russia, China. And any one of those 5 permanent members, if they vote no on something, it doesn't pass, even if there is a majority of the 15 who wanted it. And presumably this is what happened yesterday, is that there were a majority of the 15 that wanted this resolution to go through, calling on Russia to withdraw completely from Ukraine. There were some countries besides Russia who did not want this resolution, and obviously Russia vetoed it. They used their legitimate right to veto the resolution, so the resolution did not pass. But what I thought was significant is I went through, I was able, it's public information, I didn't have to go anywhere special or sketchy to get it, but public information. I received an English language version of the statement that was made yesterday in that meeting by the Russian ambassador to the United Nations. So I'd like to go through it and talk about it a little bit, and try to make the point that I'm not for one country against another country. I'm for trying to seek truth and find out what's really going on, and that's what I encourage people to try to do. Is to do you believe everything you see or you read in the mainstream media? And because you get into this situation where if one side says something, it's okay, it's good, we believe it. The other side says something and it's propaganda. So, really, I think that we have to get out of that and really try to see what's really going on. And is it really more than just a political or military or diplomatic struggle? Is it even a spiritual struggle? And so I'm going to go through this speech and explain, it's given by a diplomat, and but I'll try to explain a little bit the way I understand some of the things that are going on in this speech. So it's called an explanation of vote. So it's basically, why did Russia vote against this resolution that Russia should withdraw from Ukraine? So it's from the 25th of February, yesterday, so it's recent. And its colleagues. Russia voted against the anti-Russian and anti-Ukrainian draft resolution that was put forward to the Security Council today. I think I don't have to explain why it is anti-Russian. Suffice it to look briefly at it. But why anti-Ukrainian? Because this document, without any doubt, contradicts the fundamental interests of the Ukrainian people as it seeks to protect and secure in Ukraine the system of power that brought the country to this tragedy that has lasted for at least 8 years already. We thank those who chose to not support this draft, and I will not respond to those who just accuse Russia of abusing its veto right, which legitimately one of the 5 permanent members, any one of the 5 permanent members, as I explained, has the right to veto or say no to a resolution. The thing here is, what he makes the point, why is it anti-Ukrainian? Well, you have to look at what's going on. I mean, what type of government is there in Ukraine right now? And what's the policy of that government? What's the policy of the US? What's the policy of Western countries? It's one thing to say, oh, there was an invasion or there's an operation or whatever you want to call it. I mean, people generally don't think an invasion is a good thing, but you have to think a little more deeply than that. More deeply than generally politicians and diplomats and media think. And why is there this type of situation, invasion, operation, whatever you want to call it? Why is it going on? If you look at what's going on behind the scenes, then at least you can understand why it's going on, and maybe see, if the operation is successfully concluded, could some good come of it. It's not a question of being for or against this country or that country. It's a question of, what does God want from this situation? And God can use anybody. He doesn't have to use the most righteous person to pursue something that is righteous. I think you have to judge that for yourself. If you don't believe in the Almighty Creator, I understand that. You won't consider what I have to say. I understand that, and I'm fine with that. You have free will. Do what you need to do. I'm not angry at anybody. But if you do believe in the Almighty Creator, what are His purposes here? And so I'll just go through this a little bit more and try to explain some things and maybe clarify some things, maybe even for myself as well, but for people listening. The main reason why Russia voted no is not what the draft resolution says, but rather what it lacks. If only its sponsors had at least tried to make it vaguely resemble a well-balanced document, they would not have left behind issues that must not be forgotten in the context of Ukraine's problem. In particular, they left behind, they ignored, basically, the story how the Maidan junta that rose to power after the unconstitutional coup d'etat in Kiev in 2014 waged war on the people of eastern Ukraine, firing at residential quarters from guns and multiple rocket launchers and airdropping bombs on Donetsk and Lugansk. The Maidan junta, and that thing you should really look up, and he's going to explain, but the Maidanists, or the people who participated in that junta and basically overthrew the government, which was in favor of cooperation with Russia at the time. It was Yanukovych, I think his name was. They overthrew the government, and in this group of people, there's a lot of foreign influence. There's a lot of these Western intelligence agencies involved, and Khazarian mafia, the KM, involved, and a lot of foreign NGOs, and a lot of neo-Nazis, neo-fascist groups that really seem to be glorifying Hitler. And I think that if people rush to the defense of the Ukrainian people, that's fine to defend the Ukrainian people, but also be very careful who's ruling over the Ukrainian people. And especially you want to think about that, and he doesn't get into the Jewish question of this ambassador, but if you are of a Jewish background, what are the possible implications if you are ruled over by people that profess this type of ideology, far right, ultra-nationalist, fascist ideology. So it's a serious thing. It's all well and good to say that you're in favor of the people. Who's not in favor of the people? But what's being done to the people, and by whom? By whom inside the country, and by whom outside the country? Now these three areas, Crimea, by referendum they decided to vote. To join the Russian Federation. That was a while ago. That was like 8 years ago. And now you've got basically the region called Donbass, which is Donetsk and Lugansk, and these are the main Russian-speaking areas. So that's part of the equation, is to protect those areas as Russian-speaking areas, to give them some type of autonomy, or give them some opportunity to cross over the line to the Russian Federation if they want to do that. And then part of it is just how do you liberate all of them? The Eastern Russian people and the Western Ukrainian people. How do you liberate all of them from this government that seems to have become just like a dumping ground for corrupt politicians to make money? That's the way it looks. That's the way it looks. And you can say what you want about Putin and what he's doing and what his motivations are. I don't know him. I can't say that he's a good man, he's a godly man. I can't say any of that. I can't say, what he does to his opposition, how he treats them. I can't talk about his private life or his health or his wealth. People say a lot of things about a lot of people. But as I said before, it is possible that even the less righteous can be used for more righteous purposes. So I would consider that. I would think about that very, very clearly. And it's not to favor one country or another. It's to favor what does God want from this situation. Or if you don't believe in, even if you don't believe in God, what does fate want of this situation? Whatever. But I mean, I'm totally convinced that the Almighty Creator is at work in some way here to do something, to prove something, to show something. He's talking about the bombs, dropping bombs on Donetsk and Lugansk. They ignored is what he means. They ignored how Ukrainian authorities, with connivance of their Western sponsors, cynically and consistently evaded or avoided implementing the Minsk agreements, which were peace agreements for Russia and Ukraine, which envisaged as a core element direct dialogue with the people of Donbass, the eastern Russian territory. At the same time, punitive squads deployed on the Ukrainian side of the contact line, representing radical and neo-Nazi battalions in the first place, systematically and on a daily basis bombarded residential areas of the DPR and LPR, killing women, children, and elderly people. By the way, this still continues. Even today, 4 people died at the hands of the Ukrainian military. How can we not mention ghastly crimes committed by Ukrainian Nazis in the course of the past 8 years, or people who protested against Maidan and were burnt alive in Odessa, or shooting up of peaceful protesters on Maidan Square by unidentified snipers? The Maidan regime deliberately wore out investigations of both those tragedies. They kind of let them lapse. In the meantime, those who are guilty of the Odessa tragedy are well known and do not seem to be hiding. Alternative investigations and confessions of the snipers themselves unequivocally confirm that the onslaught on the Square of Independence, Maidan, resulted from a provocation by the leaders of Maidan. Now, all of this, you have to check it out for yourself. I mean, you see all kinds of images on both sides of this issue. You have to check it out for yourself. Check out Maidan. Check out who these people are. And what they've been doing for a long time now. Don't take my word for it. Check it out for yourselves and look at different sources. Evaluate different sources. And I'll give you an example of it in a minute when we get there. Last year, Russia hosted informal Security Council meetings under a special format. It's called the ARIA formula, to discuss both those episodes and give our colleagues in the Council more information on that matter. But in response, we at best heard some cliches about Russian propaganda. How can there be a resolution on Ukraine that does not mention what I just referred to, meaning Maidan? Also, it would be good to include in this draft resolution a fair assessment of the role that our Western colleagues played in fueling the Ukrainian crisis. And this is where it gets very, very touchy. People don't want to admit that maybe there has been behind-the-scenes foreign influence into this whole situation that has kind of stoked it or fueled it, like you said, or kind of promoted it. They not only stood behind the Maidan coup, but in fact gave carte blanche to Kiev for any acts and steps that are unthinkable to any civilized state. Those acts include flagrant discrimination against the Russian language and therefore Russian-speaking people, glorification of Hitler's accomplices coupled with a ban on paying tribute to the real heroes of Ukraine who liberated it from Nazism, and also causing religious schism or divide in Ukraine. While you were telling tales about a triumph of democracy in Ukraine, the Maidan authorities and nationalists killed political opponents with impunity, persecuted the opposition, shut down opposition TV channels, 6 of them during President Zelensky's tenure, where one could get relatively objective information. Can you forget how you pumped Ukraine up with weapons that later were used to kill civilians in Donbass? Now you have to check all this out. I mean, this is what he's presenting, and what is Russia doing and what is the government of Ukraine doing, and you have to check it out, right? I mean, is this simply a political battle or is there a spiritual battle? And it's really time to forget about all this kind of wishy-washy, politics and diplomacy that don't get anywhere. Basically, above and beyond any of that, somebody is evil here. Now, is it the Russian invasion or operation or whatever? Is that evil? Or is the treatment by the government of Ukraine of its people, is that evil? Now, which one is evil? I think really it's time people have to just make up their minds that it's much more than just words on a page. It's just much more than a diplomat's speech. Is that it is something spiritual. You made Ukraine a pawn in your geopolitical games. Not in the least degree did you care for the interests of the Ukrainian people. And so you see people demonstrating in favor of Ukraine, but what are they in favor of? I mean, are they in favor of keeping the government as it is, or are they in favor of the people? What are they in favor of? You don't know. I mean, through the media filter, which is a very dark filter, let's put it that way. It is not only the current Ukrainian leadership, but also you, foreigners, who are responsible for what is happening now. Today's draft resolution was nothing more than another move in this cruel and inhumane chess game against Ukraine. Colleagues, at this moment, newsfeed of Western media is packed with reports about civilians of Kiev and other Ukrainian cities hiding in bomb shelters, fearing for their lives and escaping from bombardments. All of us are sincerely worried about our neighbors, and we call on them not to yield to provocations. President Putin and Russia's defense ministry clearly stated that there would be no strikes against civil facilities or civilian facilities, but nationalists already use civilians as a human shield in particular. We strongly condemn them placing positions for artillery and multiple rocket launchers in residential quarters. This is a direct violation of the norms of international humanitarian law, including Articles 51 and 58 of the First Additional Protocol to the Geneva Conventions. Now, check out what I've read to you in all these three paragraphs. I mean, I think you really just have to check it out. We see Western politicians and media use the situation in their propaganda exercises. Here's my question to you. Where have you been for 8 years? Why haven't you been concerned over the shelling and killings in Donbass? Why didn't you notice that there were 4 million people living in the DPR and LPR, whom you at best called pro-Russian separatists? Why didn't you call down Mr. Poroshenko when he said that the people of Donbass would rot in basements, or President Zelensky, who called them unpeople and critters? So this Poroshenko, he was put into power, but really by these nationalists and Western and all these people, put him into power, replacing Yanukovych, I believe, in 2014. And Poroshenko is definitely on the side of this whatever you want to call it, that's going on in Ukraine. This government that is oppressing its people, whatever you want to call it. And I saw him the other day, maybe yesterday, I saw him interviewed by CNN. So that, to me, that tells you all you need to know about Poroshenko. That he's really a tool of these pro-nationalist fascist elements. And okay, that's why he gets to go on CNN, right? So, by the way, I cannot but mention that in their propagandist haze, our Western colleagues frequently use pictures taken in Donbass and show them off to illustrate the so-called Russian aggression in Ukraine. There are lots of such fakes now on the internet and in Telegram channels, and there is plenty of video footage allegedly depicting Russian strikes against Ukraine's peaceful quarters. But those photos were actually made on other parts of the globe and have nothing to do with Ukraine. BBC underscored this today, issuing an article, Ukraine Conflict, Many Misleading Images Have Been Shared Online. There you can find everything. Photos from parades, photos of American aviation bombing Libya, photos from Syria, and even photos of a Beirut explosion that are presented as something that took place in Ukraine. I will forward this article to the members of the Council. And then we're almost done. We're coming down the home stretch. Let me specifically address my French, British, and American colleagues. The permanent representative of France said that killings of civilians take place in Ukraine now. This is not true. Russian forces do not bomb Ukrainian cities. We said that nothing threatens their lives. There is no verified record of civilian casualties. So he's talking about a verified record. So you have to verify. Instead of just spouting talking points, verify. Look to as many sources as you can find to see what's really going on here. To the British ambassador, I must say the following. What you say is Russian armored vehicle running over civilians is heavy. What you say is a heavy tracked surface-to-air missile system, Strela 10, that is in service with, or Arrow 10, that is in service with Ukrainian armed forces. Russia does not have such systems in service because they are outdated or obsolete. Those are the fakes that you use. To my American colleague, I must say that reports about an allegedly destroyed kindergarten are fake. Of course, we can hardly compete with the United States in terms of number of invasions to neighbors. I will keep from listing all acts of aggression that the U.S. has committed in the course of its history. So, is it you who lectures us, or who are you to lecture us about morality? Maybe it's closer. So you think what you want to think. You check it out. You check it out and look at it as really it's more than a political and diplomatic issue. It's a spiritual issue. And what does God want from this situation? He wants one, or he wants the other. He wants what one side is doing, or he wants what the other side is doing. This is what God wants from the situation. So you have to do a lot of work so you can draw a legitimate conclusion on that if you're interested. Or you can just you can just keep yourself into this one narrative. And I'm not saying, I'm for this country or for that country. I'm for understanding what is God's plan here. And what is God's plan? What's going on around the world? And to many people who just have not woken up to the fact that we're controlled by a very small group of people who have no legitimacy. They're against God, they're against Christ, they're against humanity. And now all of this is coming to light. This is just another example of that, it looks to me. That's how it looks to me. But people have to, and I've heard, colleagues and others that are just that they're so angry at this operation or invasion or whatever you want to call it. Well, look into the history of it. Look at what's been going on for the last 8 years, and I imagine longer than that. But at least we can kind of look at 8 years and see, which sources of information are reliable. People just trust certain sources of information without any depth of thought. Is that a reliable source of information? Or maybe I should look at something else now. And everyone will scream, well, yeah, it's alt media, it's conspiracy theories, etc., etc. Yes, mainstream media is gone. They're spiritually dead, and they're on their way out. Mainstream media, for sure. On the alt media side, it's true. You have to be careful. There are alt media people that are bought and paid for by other interests. So you need to find the best sources you can find on the alternative side. In the mainstream media, I don't think you will find very good sources, or at least you have to keep inquiring, you have to keep pushing. But the more questions you ask, the more you will be viewed as a persona non grata, as someone who's just a troublemaker. So you just have to keep pushing for truth. Truth is the point here. Truth is the point here. It's not the point this country or that country, support this one, support that one. You want to find out what's really happening. And it is good versus evil. Now, who's evil here? As I was saying before, who's evil here? Is it the one conducting this operation, or is it the government in the way that they've been treating the government of Ukraine, in the way that they've been treating their people? That's a very deep question. That's deeper than just the media talking points, and it's deeper than just all of the wishy-washy politics and diplomacy that are not going to resolve anything. In conclusion, let me stress that we do not wage war on Ukraine and its people. We're carrying out a special military operation against nationalists to protect the people of Donbass, ensure denazification and demilitarization. Those tasks will soon be complete, and the people of Ukraine will again have an opportunity to shape their future while living in peace and cooperation with all neighbors. And in response to the permanent representative of Ukraine, the Russian rep said, "I will only make one comment to reassure the members of the Council. I could comment abundantly on the statement delivered by the permanent representative of Ukraine, but I will leave that to his conscience. I mean, the rudeness that he afforded us in his remarks. But let me say this one thing. Russia's defense ministry published a report yesterday on the 24th of February. Russian paratrooper forces gained whole control of the territory in the vicinity of the Chernobyl nuclear plant. An agreement was reached with Ukrainian servicemen from the nuclear power plant Special Guard Battalion about joint actions to ensure security of the energy blocks and sarcophagus of the Chernobyl plant." So that's the quote from the defense ministry, and then the rep continues, "We do not want Ukraine to have a dirty bomb." Representative of our defense ministry said that the personnel carried on with routine procedures at the plant and kept monitoring radioactivity. Radiation level in the area of the plant is normal. And here's a report from Vienna, the International Atomic Energy Agency. "Radiation levels at the Chernobyl plant are low. There is no threat to population," said the Director General of this IAEA, Rafael Grossi. So anyway, those were the remarks explaining why Russia voted against this resolution to withdraw completely from Ukraine. And really, I would urge you to go beyond the political and diplomatic. I was just kind of using this statement as a springboard to ask people to consider, what does the Almighty Creator want from this situation? What is good? What is evil? Can God use the less than righteous for righteous purposes? Everybody has a bone to pick with this leader or that leader, and what do we really know about what we're seeing in media? You really need to seek the deeper things of God and seek the will of the Almighty Creator. It's not this country or that country. It's what is God's plan? What is God's purpose? And make up your mind which side of that you stand on. Okay, so that was kind of a serious message, sober message, but I hope you have a good weekend. And now I really do think that I'll be away for a couple of weeks, and you might not hear from me for a while. But you will hear from me again. So thank you for listening, and have a good day, and talk to you soon. Bye for now.